suit.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So, what crime is that? Is like a menacing assault?
I think
It's
it's
insurance
insurance
fraud.
fraud
Real? What kind of
and
insurance
bad
fraud?
acting.
Well,
And
bad acting, of course, right? That should be like a life sentence, bad acting.
No Oscars for them.
no, just drafting.
So, take me through the beginning. I know you both are here to speak about helping those not only with their businesses, but with the relationships and some of the abuse that they've gone through. So, how did you both get started in this type of work and why?
Um, Timing, I guess it started. I started the business, and Sharyn joined about 13 years ago. It was uh, I had worked for a company, and I was a man, one of their managers in a nationwide company, and my national sales manager quit. And my mom made the suggestion, well, why don't you just start your own company? And 2 weeks later, it happened. Mom was a huge influence. Um, and it was one of those companies that puts logos on stuff. But the long term plan was it was going to morph into marketing assistance and probably coaching. And it that sped up when Sharyn joined the company because all of a sudden she had a 20-year background in HR, and so we took her in office running the show and my sales management and sales, and we're suddenly able to help small business owners with that entire set. We're their second set of eyes. We call ourselves, we have our easy button, and so we're our clients call us their easy button. And the only stuff we really don't touch is their legal or their financials. So.
Neither of us are licensed in those things, though.
So when you are looking to help these people, do you like what's some of the common, what type of demographic usually looks to the both of you for assistance or that you both engage in?
Small business owners, the vertical doesn't really matter. Um, Usually they're solopreneurs. We're comfortable up to 50 employees, but most of them are 10 employees or less. We certainly do have other couples, right? They do tend to gravitate towards us because we are a couple in business as well, and so we kind of get the additional level of complexity of having your life partner be your business partner as well.
Uh, it's we've I'll back up and move forward. We've written 8 best-selling business books, and a couple of them will give you an idea of our target audience. One, we were advised by another coach that you guys ought to write a book about couples in working in business together. Like, well, that's a silly. Oh wait, that's a really good idea. It's where partners and everything came from. But we realized that how we run our business is we probably haven't cornered the market on how a couple should do it. So we interviewed a dozen other couples, and we all answered the same question. So you can find a variety of answers to how you might want to solve a bunch of different challenges. Um, we've coached other couples, and some of them uh, we didn't realize we were couples counselors.
Happens.
Yeah, we're because of other trainings we've done, we could we are licensed life coaches or not licensed, certified, and neurolinguistic programming trainers, but that wasn't our
intention.
No, because that's deep stuff. But we've noticed that within every time we've coached a couple, there's some issues that come up.
Especially since I am an abuse survivor, and so there are other women. Mostly it's women because it's me, right? If it were Hank that was the abuse survivor, we might attract more men. But since it's me, we tend to attract more women that are abuse survivors because I can model for them how to even with a traumatic childhood, still have a thriving business and a thriving relationship.
The other demographic we have noticed in our entire breadth is that our clients are usually overwhelmed or overthink things. So that's why we have another book, The Entrepreneurial Guide for Overwhelmed and Overthinking Entrepreneurs. So that's been a constant. Most of the reason people want business coaches or any kind of coaching is I've got to get out of my head. And we go into their head and pull it out and talk about it and put them on a path that's going to help them the most.
I know for me, I spoke to someone, this was maybe, wow, time flies. I want to say 6 years ago.
Yeah, have you noticed how often that happens as we get older?
Yeah, yeah.
The
Like
time
someone said,
frame.
the days are long, but the years are short, right? Like
Right.
you don't realize. But she tried to start a business and she was engaged at the time. And her business was like her dream ever since maybe she was in her 20s. So at the time, she was like mid to late 30s. So it's been her dream for like 10 years, 15 years. And she was so close to realizing it, and then she ended up realizing it, and then this person came into her life, and this person wanted to be a part of the dream, right? Like any good husband or future wife or whatever the
Supportive.
case is, supportive, right? It turns out the person was able to overtake their company and it ended up somehow in their name only. And they ended up running the business and eventually moved her out. And then they ended up not being married. And she was near tears. And one of the problems that she shared was that she didn't realize how quickly it was happening because she was blinded by the emotions of the relationships.
How
Right. When
sad.
you mention the couples that you deal with and that you guys have seen, do you see sometimes um, their judgment is impaired by their emotions?
Hmm. I think we both have an answer for this.
Yeah.
I see it as the judgment is impaired because the line between personal and work moves.
Or gets blurry.
Yeah. And if they're not at the same place, then there can be some friction. Example, there are some couples where once you cross the threshold, and for some of them it's into the house, some of them it's into the bedroom, some of it's, wherever that threshold is, there's no business talk. We don't really have a threshold. We could be brushing our teeth and say, but for some couples, it's really important to establish that threshold so that they know that once they're, for example, in the bedroom, it's only them. And
You really only need that rule if there's conflict, right? We agree that we don't need that threshold rule, and so there's no rule. But if one of us needed, no, really, at 8 o'clock, we're done. We're not talking business. Then we'd have to create that boundary. But it's only if there's a conflict.
And it does happen sometimes. It's like, I am so done with business. Can we just, cuddle on the couch?
Right. We have days, but it's not a consistency. It's more like tonight, can we just not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe.
Tonight we will just not. We are going to the movies.
Yeah, I think, yeah, exactly. And I think some people, they don't have that, as you mentioned, the separation, right? Like their identity is always, I'm a business owner, instead of, okay, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I'm a
I think
boyfriend,
if
I'm a
we had
girlfriend.
kids, it would be different. And I say that because if we had kids, I would want it to be different. Like I would want that separation time. Okay, this is kid time. We're having family dinner. We're not discussing business at the family dinner table.
And I would completely agree.
But since we don't have kids and the cats don't care, it doesn't matter.
What do you think could help some people who are struggling with that to make sure that they have time for themselves, such as, let's say, a movie night, or making sure that there isn't a line being crossed because they still need that separation?
I have a couple of answers for you. One is to calendar it. So make sure that you have date night calendared, right? Whether it's once a week, once a month, whatever is right for you as a couple, right? It's not our rule, it's your rule. So whatever the rule is. The other is that when I agreed to join the company, we agreed together first. The first agreement was marriage first. If there's ever an argument over business that is so pervasive that it starts to feel like the marriage is in danger, I'm out. I'll go get a job. Like the marriage is first. So as long as everyone agrees that that's the deal, that marriage is first, the business, we can go make money in other ways. This is not the only way to make money. So there are other things that you could do, then that's fine. But if you are in the agreement that the business is first, then yeah, the marriage may indeed falter.
I think that's probably the best way to do it, just because hopefully, I want to caution my
Ideally, let's
words
say
here.
ideally.
Ideally, the marriage was either established maybe before, or it could have been that it's the most important thing, because without the marriage, there really isn't any business,
Yeah.
and go from there. So, like, what are your thoughts on maybe why that imbalance still actually happens?
I think it happens because people aren't cognizant. They don't make that conscious choice first, and then it doesn't come up. It doesn't occur to them later, right? Unless we're talking to them, it doesn't occur to them.
So some of it is, look, so a lot of it is communication openly. Before we were married, Sharyn, we went to a counselor for a year before we were married and worked on communication stuff. And there are some things we still use today. We both realized that sometimes we would ask the other a question and we weren't getting an answer and we'd get pissed. And great counselor, she said, "Are you usually in the room together?" And we said, "Well, come to think of it, no." "Well, have you ever thought that the other person just didn't hear you?" And we just kind of sat there like, "Oh, all the time." So the thing is, if you hear the question, you may not be able to answer it. The response is, "I heard you,
Thinking.
I'm thinking. So I will get back to you with an answer. Let me formulate it." And if you are the question asker and you don't get an answer and you don't hear
Thinking,
then the other person did not hear you. Don't get pissed.
and it's funny how often that gets pervasive. Some of our coaching with our clients happens over the phone, and we just, they'll ask a question and we have to think about the answer, and we just now naturally just say thinking, because over the phone they don't know that we're thinking. They don't know that we heard them, right? Right. If we're on Zoom, they can kind of get from the facial expression, "Oh wait, we're thinking." But if we're on the phone, they don't know. So it actually comes really naturally now to just say thinking.
I wonder if that's why, like with text messages, you have people that will bombard you, right? They'll say, "Hey, how are things going?" They'll ask a question. A couple minutes later, they'll send another text. 5 minutes later, send another text. And by the time you get off the toilet, you're like, "Oh my God."
You mean
There's all these
by the time
text
you're
messages.
finished scrambling the eggs while you're making breakfast?
Yeah, like there's all these questions for me, and I'm like, what is really going on? And maybe it's because we're such in a fast-paced society that we just can't wait, because we want that answer now, we want it fast, and because we're on to the next thing, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Microwave society.
Today got a couple of questions from a client, and I wasn't going to answer it right then, so I just bounced back received. Yeah, I'll, and then an hour or so later, I was able to answer it, but I just wanted to, okay, got your email.
Thinking
about it.
Or it could do like what's that app called? The messaging app. WhatsApp, where it tells you if you've read it. So what some people do is they remove that so it doesn't show if you read it or not. So what they'll do is they'll slide down the notification. They'll be like, "Okay, Hank sent me a message." So they don't actually open it. They'll just like look at the pop-up, because some people, they really don't want that confrontation. I went on a date with someone years ago, and I didn't know that was a feature. So I'd read the messages, right? And then I'll wait a couple minutes. And she's like, "I know you read my message." And I'm like, "How do you know
Wow.
that?"
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of scary, because I can imagine if I had like a business with someone and they were that hands-on or helicopter, like a helicopter parent,
Yeah.
it could cause a lot of stress because some people may not have the wisdom to have the type of conversation that the two of you had prior to getting married. Looking back now, how important was that session that you guys both did?
Vital.
Completely vital. It's I mean, look, we've been married not long enough, but we've been married for 33 years. And I'm giving you a story that's 34 years old. And it's that tool for communication is still used.
Every day. Often multiple times a day.
We could be, well, today I was a floor below Sharyn, and she said, "Can you hear me?" She used that first instead of just asking the question. So, and I answered, so she knew, okay, I can ask him the question.
The other really good thing that we use also is because our desks are perpendicular to each other, but we both have our own division of labor, right? We have our lane, right? You stay in your lane, I stay in my lane, right? But sometimes we have a question for the other one, but they're busy, right? They're not just sitting there waiting for me to ask a question, right? So I tend to ask him and vice versa, are you interruptible? Rather than just blurting out the question. Because
she's so much better at that than I am.
If you're in the middle of trying to do something and then someone just, comes, even if you're in an office, I mean, let alone working like this in a partnership, but just in an office and someone just barges in your door and starts asking questions, you're like, wait, I was in the middle of something completely different. And now you're asking me to switch gears. So we do tend to say, are you interruptible? And sometimes he'll say yes, and sometimes he'll say, I need a moment. And okay, or let me know when you're interruptible, and I have a couple questions.
You are so much better than me. Like way better at it than I am.
Well, I had years of practice in an office.
Yeah, it's been a very long time since I had to see the same people at an office every day of my life.
You see me every day.
Yeah, but I love you.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah,
that's absolutely different.
The other people, I was only getting paid to tolerate them,
and barely at that. Barely tolerate.
It is. I used when I would walk into some clients' offices. Again, this was mostly in the promo period of time selling stuff, and I would think, my God, you people have to see each other every day. Woo.
Oh yeah, there's some people. I look at them. I look at my paycheck. I look at them. I look at my paycheck.
And you start to
I'm
wonder.
like, exactly. I'm like, you're just worth it.
Barely. Yeah. I'm not getting paid enough to deal with you.
I know. It's so scary seeing what we will put up with or tolerate when it comes to not only maybe having your own business, but just working for another person. I remember telling someone who was looking to start their business, I was like, go for it, because one of the most toxic relationships you ever have is with an employer. Right. Once you're your own boss, you can, do certain things, and it's your vision, and more importantly, it's your dream, and you don't necessarily have to convince anyone because it's yours. It's your baby.
Yeah, I was asked a number of years ago. I was asked to be a sales manager for a company. It's like, okay, so I'd have to shut my deal down, go to work for him. Said, all right. We talked about money a little bit, decent money. Do I have to have Monday morning sales meeting? Well, yeah, I like gathering the team at least once a week. Can I do it other days, or well, we can discuss that. If I think one of the salespeople sucks, can I just fire them, or do I need to run it up the flagpole to you? And yeah, I'd like you to run that up. I was like, you know what? Either my price just went up a lot, or this isn't going to work. It was just I was putting myself in a situation where I wasn't really the sales manager. I was more of his assistant that was running the sales team. And that I was going to hate it.
Look, working for someone is hard. Owning your own business is hard. Choose your heart, right? Yeah. Being in a relationship is hard. Being single is hard. Choose your hard.
This isn't hard.
But one is definitely more rewarding because if I would have, let's say, my girlfriend and I, if we started a business together, before we would start the business, ideally, to use Hank's word, we want to come together and create this vision versus if I'm working for someone, it's someone else's vision and then I have to buy in.
Yes.
Or because the both of you are doing this, is my version of things in an idealistic world or is it at least close enough to reality where both people come together, it's a shared vision, shared love, and they can move forward?
You know,
Ideally.
there are challenges there, and I'll look. We have these on our fingers, okay? So there's a solid commitment. Girlfriend, boyfriend, come on, those come and go. But now we've started a business together, so there
better be a contract.
Yeah, it better be really good, And this is true even if you're not in a romantic relationship. If you're getting into a business with somebody, you must have a contract, which includes if one of us decides this doesn't work anymore, what's the process for separating? Because that's horrific. All of a sudden your business, which is, let's say it's 5 years old, and all of a sudden your girlfriend, you've decided you don't like the way she, chews her food. It's like, oh my, that's a rough thing because now it's your romantic part and it's your money.
Lawyers would say even if you're married, you should have a contract.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, because could you imagine like you start a business and then a couple of years later you're divorced and bankrupt?
You think that doesn't happen a lot?
How often, Hank?
Oh my God.
I don't know about the bankrupt part, but yes, you start a business and then you're divorcing, and now how do you separate from the business? It gets dicey.
Yeah, and they start like a retail type business, which has a restaurant which has the highest pressure and failure rate. So, and, oh my goodness, the pressure that puts on the relationship. Yeah, we just have to coach together.
Yeah, be like us, not like Mike, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
Like you can do that. Well, a lot of what we're doing is we're giving expertise in answering questions, but we are cheerleaders. We're accountability partners. We'll send a text to a client. In fact, Mary didn't answer my text.
She didn't answer mine either.
Yeah, I was on a coaching call with a client at the beginning of the week. Said, all right, okay, this is what you're going to do. Make sure you send me a text that you performed this function to build your business. And she hasn't answered yet. So I'm, okay. I know what our call is going to be like on Monday. Whereas some others, every time we say send a text, like Cindy will do this, it's like, bam, there it is. So, oh well.
How can the couples learn to hold each other accountable when it comes to the business side of things?
It's hard. That's probably the hardest part because it's the balance of how do you ask, did X get done without that person getting defensive? Right? Like it gets tricky.
I'll get to it.
It helps to have that agreement ahead of time, right? How are we going to navigate that? How would you like me to ask you? But those things also evolve, right? The way he would have told me to ask that question when I started 13 years ago versus today, it would have evolved over time.
Oh yeah. At first, I had a system, and we kind of made the agreement. Look, I need 6 months to a year of follow my system because I know really smart. Like this is my brain. And I know you're gonna have ideas. I know you're gonna have thoughts, and that's great. At first, just make a list and give me some time. And after we're, that 6 months to a year in, all right, then we will evolve it. And now I realize if she says, hey, did that email get sent? I know it's not like she's trying to be a boss. this is our business. She just wants what's best. So she's trying to stay on top of stuff. She has all these balls in the air. She's trying to make sure, that I don't drop one. So thank goodness she does it. So part of it is an attitude that you go into it with.
It's also the tone of asking, right? So
She's
it's how
really good at tone.
How do you ask
sweetie,
and
darling,
how do you receive?
baby, that one little email? Did that ever get sent?
That is something I do wonder, like, because the maturity level has to be very high, not only if you're a married couple, because you're committing to each other in a way that I still believe is very important. Like, I know sometimes people get married and 2 days later they get a divorce and they claim they didn't know who they were, and then things is just strange, right? But if you're going to commit to starting a business together or working together or getting into something together, to both of your points, right? You have to understand that, okay, what is this going to look like? Let's outline it. Let's hold each other responsible and accountable. And if something goes left on the business side, let's not let it impact our marriage, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Understand, let's see. We were dating 3 years before we got married. So we had gone through the year-long cycle 3 times. Sharyn was in therapy and going to a 12-step program, and I started going to those with her. So I went into it. All right, I dig this chick. She's really hot, got a great butt, but I need to know where we are both coming from. And wow, how do I say this without it sounding like so condescending? The progress I saw in 3 years, it's like, okay, I see exactly where she's going. Like, she's just had like 2 jumps in jobs, and she's got her, the defecation will not hit the rotary oscillator, and she's got her act together, or at least the image was. It also helped that my mom considered Sharyn to be the daughter she never had, and I had a sister. So, mom was way on board.
I had the best in-laws. I did not give him the best in-laws, but I got the best.
No, your mom's fabulous.
My mom's awesome.
Her mom's killer. Her dad, oh God. I'm so glad I met her mom.
Child abuse survivor.
Yeah, so glad I met her mom before I met her dad. Oh, wow.
They're not together.
No. It's and you're catching us right after she had a 10-day train trip with her dad. So the wounds are, the bandages have been ripped off right now. If you ask the right question, wow.
That's what I'm wondering. What's the situation with the father, since Hank speaks so ominously about it?
Well, as I said, I'm a child abuse survivor, right? He was definitely abusive. He is a violent, angry man. I was going to add some more, but that's good enough. We're on opposite ends of the political spectrum, so we did agree not to discuss politics, which we did pretty well until like the second to last day, when I almost left him in El Paso.
I thought they went from Phoenix to LA to Portland to Chicago to New Orleans to back to Phoenix. I said, look, if in any of those places you want to hop off and get on a plane, credit cards there, baby. That's why they're there. So she had full.
Yeah.
You can get away from that son of a at any time you want. And to her credit, she didn't even throw daddy from the train. Good job.
I had a strange relationship with both of my parents, and I see so many other people have one as well. Nothing like you described, but just probably, to be politically correct, a clash of personalities, right? But I can understand where someone's thought process and that side bothers you or like rubs you the wrong way, because that's something that's forever, right? You're just gonna continue to clash with that. But I do
Yeah.
wonder, how does, like, for you, Sharon, like, to be that close, right? 10 days with someone like that, and to go through that, I must say you're a better person than me, first and foremost. But how
You'll notice I
did
didn't
you,
go.
yeah, how did you come out of that still sane?
um,
That's a great question, Sharyn.
because, look, he's now 80 years old, right? The last time he laid hands on me, I was 16 years old. I did a really good job of keeping my physical distance from him from the time I was 16. When we, as Hank said in our pre-conversation, we went from LA to Sedona to now we're in Maryland. When we lived in Sedona, he lived in Phoenix. He still lives in Phoenix. He never knew our physical street address. And he was pissed that he didn't get our street address. He asked for our address, and I gave him our mailing address, our post box address. And he was furious, so much so that I had a week-long exchange with my therapist, who I hadn't seen her in a while, but I reached out to her and said, hey, I'm having this new challenge with Dad. Can you help me with this? And so I hired her for that. It took a week of back and forth emails and Facebook messages to get past that. Look, you're not going to have our physical address. It's not going to happen. You're an angry, armed man. We disagree on politics. You violently disagree on politics, and I don't trust that you're not going to come up here and do something that will harm us. And so you're not going to get our street address. Okay, he's now 80 years old with a walker. We were on a train. They do not allow you to bring firearms onto a train. We had that conversation ahead of time, right? I made sure, right? You realize you cannot bring firearms. And he said, yes, or knives, which makes me feel naked. I said, well, you have a choice. If you want to be with your firearms and your knives, then we don't need to take this ride. If it depends on what's more important to you, right? Is it more important to you to be next to your firearms, or is it more important we take this train ride? Totally up to you. I can go either way. And he said, no, the train ride. I'm like, okay, well then you're going to leave the firearms at home. So I've got an 80-year-old guy, incontinent, with a walker who's not armed.
Would anyone like his name and address? And they could, yeah.
Like, seriously, I'm fine. Like, he can't possibly hurt me. He's not strong enough to hurt me. He's got neuropathy in his hand. I mean, he's just not strong enough. So, yeah, we can now disagree, and we can disagree loudly, but it is no longer violent at this stage.
At our wedding, I wanted to get, I was asking Sharyn if I could have him patted down.
No.
She wouldn't let me go.
No, that was a bridge too far.
Well, just to make sure, right? I remember, like, my cousin, when she got married, I don't get along with her father, which is my uncle. And I said that I don't know if I could attend your wedding just because I'm not getting along with your father because of some of the things that he did to the family, which oddly enough, the children were more forgiven than the outside family, like the cousins. Well, sorry, she was more forgiven. The second daughter was not, the son wasn't, but she was the oldest and she was the most forgiven. So the compromise was, I would sit at the left at the front, he would sit at the right at the back, and things were strategically placed. So I don't know if they thought I was going to commit violence against him or maybe him against me, but
I
it's
totally
odd,
understand. The last
right?
time we were at a restaurant with her dad where I was there, I let him sit down and I sat at the very far end. I completely understand you doing it. Like, it's self-care.
Yeah.
I'm willing to be in the room. I just want whatever distance I can put between us. I completely understand that you did that.
Yeah, I think it's a protection thing, and as well as when you, like, I guess in Hank's situation, like, he knows what has happened to you, Sharon, right? So, I can see why he's thinking the way he's thinking, because that's probably where I was thinking. I was like, you know what? I don't really want to be around this person, but if his children wants to be, I can't supersede that, right?
Yeah. but and you still have to cover yourself, man. You know, it's ugh,
Yeah,
family.
family. You can't live without them in some cases.
Well, or you do make your own. You know, there's
Yeah.
my sister also didn't have our address,
Oh, so
and
you guys are living like off the grid a little bit there.
no, no,
Not anymore.
strategically. You know, my sister is no longer inhabiting the planet, so it's okay. But there was a long time where my sister no longer had my dad's where my dad was. You know, moved into assisted living, and there was definitely, here is her photo, here is who she is. She is not allowed in. There, you know, it was, you know, well, just imagine, you know, she abused him money wise, so we weren't going to let this happen. And the one time she wanted to go see him, we made arrangements. I said, okay. We met off property. She brought a couple of friends with her. And I said, okay, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to take all of your picture, and I'm going to photograph your license plate. And, you know, you've got to protect yourself, and you protect your loved ones. And this was really important. So
People have told me that I'm a paranoid person and I plan things like that, but to hear the two of you, it's good to meet. Thank you. It's good to meet people like me.
Great, I will validate all of it for you.
Thank you. I need the validation. I used to look underneath my car. I used to do laps around the car, and people are like, "Why do you do that?" I was like, "Actually, you're supposed to for safety. There could be leakage, anything, right?" But everyone's like, "No, you probably think there's a bomb." I'm like, "I'm not a gangster or mafia."
It doesn't have to be a bomb. It could just be somebody hiding.
Yeah,
someone hiding, or it could be like you leaking fluid too. Something as simple as that, or a flat tire, right?
That's right.
But some people automatically go to it's going to explode, right? But you begin to realize to both of your points, right? Like you have to protect yourself because you're responsible for you, not the actions of others in a lot of ways.
Look, understand, after my sister passed, I became the possessor of her stuff. Not a whole lot of stuff. Most of it was like one box of journals. And as I read through the journals, which I ended up not reading all of them, it was like, oh my God, I'm glad she didn't know where we were. It was, you know, one of the things that went wrong in her life is that her parents, when she was 8 years old, had another kid. So from 8 years old on, there was some resentment that she had to share her parents. And she and my parents were non-communicative for
A long time.
a couple of decades. And yeah, this it's hard, man. I'm when